G'day, g'day, g'day. Mathematical KM here. Remember their initials, not a title. Keith Malumbi. Okay, it's round 5 of the Tuggeranong Chess Club Championship for 2025. And I'm playing Srihari Prabhu. I'm currently rated 1452 and Srihari is 1505. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, perhaps, depending on how you look at it, maybe should have said yes when the draw was offered by Srihari. But let's take a look at the game. And perhaps you're not going to learn the way forward if you do accept a draw when you slightly got the edge. So let's take a look at the game. That's glass half full. Is looking at it, perhaps I did the right thing to keep going. We'll see. Okay. So he's opening up with king to e4. We go through just the beginnings of setting up the thick-skinned hippo. Usually, and I think there's some reason to it, I'd play a6 prior to b6, just on the basis of if he goes bishop here, and if I'm not going to go bishop there, and then that allows the bishop to sneak in here. So the order's important at times, and normally I'll play that one. But I got away with that particular little error. My opponent didn't see it. He's come forward. Best is e5. I think it'll come up, or certainly second best, but locking it up, the typical hippo move. He brings out his other knight. Close that door. None of that little sneaking in bizzo with that bishop. Okay, another bishop developed. There's prophylaxis over here as well. Deny the g5. He reroutes that knight. I bring one knight into the middle. Kind of thinking very much about keeping that bishop there and not putting it there now that you see that diagonal is not so good. Okay, so that's an aggressive move. And what to do? Now I was thinking computer likes b5 because it comes with tempo. I can see that as the best move. In fact, it's the best and the second best move. Make your mind up there, MrChess.com. And so the second best move is knight d7, which would allow placing a knight on a pretty reasonable sort of an old outpost there, were white to take. And if he doesn't take, if he pushes it forward, then we can exchange a g-pawn for it, and that's not so bad. So it's the second best move that I've played. And as we approach the 10 moves, the breather moment, in fact that's now, but we've had the extra move put in there because of the having to Lego fit in the middle. The eval is at 0.3 to white, and can be as bad sometimes as +1 to white because of the lack of space. So he pushes forward, and just on that, I think that was a cunningly seen move for white to play. And for me, the best move here is, again, it's being suggested, the b5, move the bishop along. Other than that, second best is g takes f5. And for now, I've sort of had dreams of maybe ending up castling on the queen side and keeping it closed. So second best, g takes f5, played. And if he takes, then I can get a knight into a reasonable position, but not initially, because it's not covered. He will have 2 pieces on that, but I'll need to do something like that first to get the bishop onto it. He takes. I play exactly that move, the knight coming out. Now I've got a bishop on it and a knight on it, so I could potentially win that pawn. Which is why he backs his light squared bishop up. He's now got 2 pieces protecting that pawn. He currently only has the 1 piece protecting this pawn. I've got the knight and the knight. So it's an unusual couple. Bishop b7 to get a 3rd piece on it is, interestingly enough, now that that diagonal's improved, the best move. But I've gone with the second best with the knight takes. He's come in with knight takes. I've gone with knight takes. And at the moment, all of my pawns are on the dark squares, so it would be nice to get rid of that dark bishop. Okay. He brings his queen out, and it's kind of interesting. I had to think for a little while here. Should I take that bishop? He can take my rook. This pawn's protected by the bishop, the pawns are protected, and it's all... Everything in that little cave is kind of protected, but the rook wouldn't be. And this is a steep falling away. Often there's, 0.1 or 0.2 in it between your top 3 moves. And in this case, the top move is eval 0. Second gives him plus 1.55. And third gives him plus 2.1. You want to get the best move on this one. So I was right to think heavily about this one. And my thought process took me to either we just get that straight trade, the trade that I wanted, or I take his bishop, he takes my rook. What he might not have thought about until now is I then take his rook. So I get a bishop and a rook. He gets a knight and a rook. So 2 rooks are off, and I've had the knight for the bishop that I wanted to trade it. And that's the 0.00, and I played the best move. And like here on this next one, there's like 0.01 difference between the top 2 moves, and the third one's 1 away, not 3 away. So it's often not as steep a choice as what that one was. And his best move, and the 0.01 between having the straight trade of minor pieces versus the rook and the minor pieces is 0.00. And he played the take the rook, take the rook. He takes back. And so what move we're in? Move 17, and we're on 0.0 for the eval. Quite the arm wrestle. Okay. Of course, I've got this queen in there. I don't know if I've got any dreams of trapping it or anything, but probably not. There's nothing like that would let him just take that one. I don't think there's any easy way of closing that box. But my best move here is d5, which is looking after that knight as best as possible, and also potentially allowing the e-pawn forward. I've developed that bishop to keep that pawn back, and back where the bishop is gunning at it. So was that in the list of moves there? Bishop f6, yeah, it was the 3rd best, which was only 0.2 away from best. And white takes a pawn. And he will win that pawn. He's had 2 pieces on it. King to e7 is interestingly an edge to black here, getting the king out of all of that danger. And by the king stepping out, it becomes 2 pieces protecting my bishop. Nice little move. And 0.2 away from that, 0.08, slight edge to white, is just getting rid of the swapping the bishops, which I did. Okay, so we are move 19 and we're on 0.00. Good. Again, I'll say arm wrestle. And here we go. What's good for black here? D5, corralling that knight. Played. Okay, so, that's good. Rook to D1, lining it up with the queen was best. And look at that, 1.2 to black. And the title for this one is going to be something like Pull Your Head In, King. Hold that king back. Put him in his nice little safe place. Castling would have been best by, it would have been -1.5 here. Which would have been connecting the rooks, connecting the rook and the queen. And getting that rook onto that g-file. Something I really want to do quite a lot and find it difficult to find the move to do it later in the piece. But we don't castle. Second best is c6 to protect that pawn. And e4, which further corrals the knight and makes it that bit harder for the rook to check the king, is third best. Still edge to black, -0.64, but that's castling was significantly better. And get that king put away and the rook connected, that's the takeaway from tonight's game. But we'll go, we played that third best move. So we've got the edge to black, we've got the 2 central pawns, white doesn't have them, the openings work quite well. And best for white here is rook to d1 or c4, attacking the back of the pawn chain, or queen to a3. Looking at sneaking in. He played queen to a4. And that takes it to -1.5. What is this seriously cool thing I should be doing to get this towards -2? Tonight's lesson, get that king to safety. King to f8. King to d7. Sorry, queen to d7. I'm going to say, how can the king charge the queen? Mind you, this king's trying to get out there with his sword. That's his problem. Queen d7 is -1.1, offering the... I had been thinking if he will trade queens, I like my pawns better than his, and maybe I can win that style of an endgame. And the third best is king to e7, which isn't very active, it's kind of passive. I played the... If you want the queens off, let's get the queens off. Best thing for white is queen to a3, queen to b4 is interesting, and a8 check, which is what was played. I can get it to 2.3 to black. And going to give you the honesty here, folks. The best move, which is more than 2.03 or something, for black. Oh, okay. Honesty. Discounted this move They say backwards moves are hard to see. Perhaps backwards protection from your own pieces might be hard to see. But I discounted king e7 because I didn't notice my bishop protecting the rook, and that would have kicked his queen out and helped develop the rook. It would have given me the move to get the rook. Would have been beautiful. You can see why it's minus 2.4. But okay, so paying attention to backwards moves is a smaller lesson to take from this game, but it wasn't the major one. So we've got queen to d8, continuing to offer the get the queens off is minus 0.4. Pulling the bishop back from the good job it's doing, holding that pawn back, is third best, minus 007. But we've said get the queens off, and I'd been realising his probable follow-up was here, threatening the bishop, but I was then there planning king e7 then, and thinking the queen was kicked out at that point. He played it, and the bishop's protected by the queen. King to f8, get that king away and hidden in here, and the rook out is just far and away. This game is trying to teach me a lesson before the ANU Championships in a few weeks' time. It'll be 6 games over a weekend. But we did, and that was, if I don't play that, I lose my edge to black. I played the king forward to protect the bishop and allow the queen to move. His queen moves away. And look at that eval, 2.2. And all three of the top moves are more than minus 2 to black. And we've got queen to d6. Getting on that diagonal. Or hopefully the other direction. Or queen to d7, which is again offering to get the queens off, but the queen can't move and check me, and that's 2.2. Or rook to e8, getting it lined up, ready to protect there and get the king manually castled. And we played the top one there. So we're starting to, it's been a little bit of a struggle, but we've got the edge. That knight's kind of looked after for now. The only real problem I've got is my king's safety is probably not as good as his, even though I've got the queen on that diagonal. But his best move is preemptively moving his king to h1 and, failing that, attacking the pawn chain at the base, which is what he played. Now my best move here is queen to c5 with a check, c6, which would be protecting the pawn with another pawn, but allowing him to check me, and then the queen to f8, and then again, pawn to c6 is all designed with getting my king out there and the rook out, which is the big message from this game. But what have I played? Well, I put in a check, but should have been done with the queen, was done with the bishop. King h1 would be an incredible mistake. He doesn't play that. He goes king to h1, which is his best move, minus 0.5. My best move here is queen to f4, which is starting to make some threats. And stop the video. It's at this point my opponent offers me a draw, and it's been close to even, but black has had the edge, but it's black having the edge back to 0, black having a small edge back to 0. In some ways, well, I would have got half a point against a higher rated opponent. You could say, coulda, woulda, shoulda taken the draw at this point. But chose to soldier on. And so it's funny, he's offered me the draw, and the very next move is where this silly beggar, who thinks he's Henry V, let's take a look. Rook to e8 is great. Bishop to e5, which is a move I certainly contemplated. And knowing that that would force, well, really, it's forcing a weakness. I knew I couldn't then come here because of his knight, and that's what stopped me from playing it. But I should have just played it anyway, and it is the best move, minus 0.8. And bishop f2. What is terrible is, and there we go, plus 1.7 to white. From minus 1 to plus 1.5. 1.6. 2.5 points of eval change. King safety, if ever a lesson needed. I thought foolishly that the king might help out with the attack in there. Anyway, we'll follow it through. So he's taken the pawn there. The best thing I can do from there is try and move that knight with e3, which I've played. He's come down and checked me. I can even, that was a good strategy. And there is still hope. I can get the edge straight back to black with that pawn in there. All I have to do is tell the king to pull his head in. And come back to g7. Get the rook involved. And the edge is back with black. Can you imagine what's the opposite of the... So king g7, which is the running behind the rook and getting the rook out, is best. King e7 is second best, and that cuts it to 0.5 for white. And third best, and I think it's kind of terrible because a rook here would win my queen. Which is interesting to say that what I'm about to do is worse than letting him pin my queen to my king. It's worse than that move. They're the three best moves. And by far, the king g7 move's best. But anyway, so let's take a look. No. Henry V is takes it out to plus 5.5. Charging with his rusty iron sword. Okay, so that was a bad move. And in comes the knight, threatening, it's forking the king and the bishop, apart from anything else. And the king charges forward. Knight takes bishop. It's interesting, I did think about it for a bit here. I did try to give my opponent a chance to let a very dodgy attack work, which is something. But, queen times d4 was just the logical, the best move. But the biggest chance of, if white goes wrong, potentially the chance of mating was second best, the queen to f2. Now, we've got rook g1. which is interesting. H3 check. And knight F3 are the moves suggested for white. Plays a different one, but it's still pretty good, as you can still see the eval still +7. I had been thinking about pawn forward and various little tricks. Queen forward, if he takes the queen, the pawn takes the queen. But he's not going to fall for any of these cheapies. So I played actually, was that in the, let's have a look. Is E2. No, C5 is, and King G5. But it's still all in the realm of you're going to lose, it's just how. So we go there, check, pull the king back. There's a chance. I mean, you're making a mating threat, but there are ways to defend. And the knight does it beautifully. It defends the mate and it puts me in check. King forward. Giving himself the obvious discovered check. Captures the queen. So let's throw that in there. Discovered check, captures the queen. Check. Check. Are we playing 3 check? 3 checks in a row? And neatly done. So there you have it. It was playing uphill with the black pieces. He's 1505 to my 1452. So it was a close game which he won. Perhaps I should have accepted the draw when I had the slight edge, just to get the half point against the higher rated opponent. You never know. But it was worth, I thought, playing it out, and in some ways my attacking was quite good. But the king's safety was the huge message to take away from that one. And let's just have a... Yep. So the opening's done well, and I've got my chances in here, and it was all about the evals trying to tell me to get that king to safety. And should have, would have, could have. Let's have a look at the... White played 83%, 74%. He had 3 great moves. I had 1 great move. Yeah, that was the only move, that one. The other 2 were far and away worse. When we look in the highlights, his opening 95.6, my opening 96.6. So that's a thumbs up for the hippo, for the opening. And middle game, king safety and working on that attack. Anyway, that was round 5, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.